there might be things that are like, okay, this might be good, or this is good things that our businesses are doing. Sometimes we get stuck, right? And what do you say to those business leaders who are like, yeah, I'm busy, I'm doing things, I'm trying things, maybe even commit to certain processes, but like I'm not making progress? Where do you usually dig into those type of questions?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that one way to approach it is creative folks or big thinkers or entrepreneurs that have a very clear big goal that they want to go for. It becomes really intimidating to start that because it's like, well, where do we start? Like that just seems so far away or
Mm,
so distant. It seems impossible to me. I don't necessarily say just start taking a direction. I think a good thing to do is try to come up with not. I don't like the word goals because I think that becomes like it sends the wrong message. I like
mm,
the idea of having projects that are nested within a project, and eventually you get to the projects are all related to where one project gets done, and you could see that that project could stand alone in and of itself, or that project can feed into the next project, and then eventually the end project is what you're trying to get at. Let's go through an example for like a lot of your listeners or people in the film industry, right? Like, what
mm,
if you wanted to produce, direct, and write your own movie, your own feature length film, and you want to get it to mainstream theaters or Netflix or one of these big distributors to pick it up? Well, that's a huge goal. That sounds really intimidating. And it's like, well, I'm going to have to hire the crew. I'm going to have to do all, and you're getting into all these different areas you could go with this
mm,
movie. Where am I going to get financing? How am I going to do this? Well, what if you just did something where you've got this story that you can't get rid of and it needs to be told? You can write a book tomorrow. You can open
mm,
up a Microsoft Word document on your computer, and in several weeks, you could have an entire book finished, right? And you can lay out in detail all of the oohs and ahs and feelings without any executive or any person or any
mm,
third party limiting your creative control. You can see if that book has any merit by going to a publisher. So right there, you've probably got 3 weeks of time invested into this activity. And I'm not saying you could write a book in 3 weeks, but if you've got a great idea and you're a good writer, this is the way to do it. And if you can't write down your ideas, it's going to be very difficult, I think, to organize an entire film around this thing. Jimmy Buffett writes books. He says if you can write a song, you can write a book.
mm.
If you can write a book, you can make a movie. If you can, I mean, this is like practice of discipline. So this book is an idea of a project nested within a project. So it gives you, first of all, you can see progress immediately. Chapter one's done. Chapter two is now done. Chapter three, whatever. Now it's on chapter 12. Let's find a publisher that might be interested in this book. If no publishers are interested in this book, it's a good indicator that we could kill this idea now. It might not be that compelling of a story, or there might not be enough detail or interest in it. We can gather feedback really early on. So within several months of this project, we can figure out with almost no money invested if this is a viable plan. Now a publisher picks it up. Now the publisher picks it up, it gets distributed. You can see how well that book sells. The book does pretty well. Now we have some validation to go pitch to some producer that we can maybe get this thing made. And you have all the leverage because it's your story. So now you have a lot of creative control over what role you want in the production of the film and so on and so forth. But you can see how that's several projects nested within one big one. And it might take 5 to 10 years to do that. But in 10 years, you could have a feature length film made. That's a pretty cool accomplishment for almost anybody.
Mm.
And
I love that.
it starts with a couple weeks of just sitting down.
And that really applies to so many, like every area of our life is like, oh, you want to run a marathon, get sneakers and start doing
Yeah.
something, right? So
Yeah, go for a walk around the block, right?
yeah,
Just start
yeah.
somewhere.
I think every area of business is like, if you get stuck in the ideation, if you get stuck in this or indecision, progress is never going to be made. And then a lot of times, it's the running towards something that's not effective at all and not making any progress at all, or it's busy, like it didn't help you make sales or didn't help you, get any closer to the destination that you want to get to. So I like that.
Yeah. And like you could write the book and just be done. Like that
Mm,
book could be a standalone project that just indefinitely you make royalties and you're done and you
mm,
never do a film again. But each step of that could be a standalone type of activity. I think
mm,
that's important. That's different to me than a goal. Because someone that says like, well, start a goal, it's gonna you change your course if you try to think of planning goals. I say plan projects
mm.
and make sure those projects, because then there's an end point and something happened and you built something and you did something. So that's I guess my initial thoughts on how you can attack those big types of dreams.
That's awesome.